short clip of how the debate went down on the floor last week before the gavel went down and the Senate passed through third reading the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the Repeal and Enactment Act of 2026. Take a listen to the proceeding.
The 2022 Act states on conviction a fine of not more than 500,000 or imprisonment not more than 2 years or both. While I agree that the fine may be increased to be more commensurate, I'm seconding his motion to the extent that what we had before should be retained, but there should be the beavers should be replaced, because beavers is okay. We should allow the beavers to see. Beavers is okay. As a second, we retain what we had before and now use beavers, because beaver is more is tested and it's okay. Pre-hearing, and you have asked committee of the Electoral Act to undertake 2 years assessment. If you have any doubt about any clause, we have committee members, call them for explanation. Call for an explanation. One. Secondly, we had an executive session yesterday on most of these clauses. Senator Ningi, an act to repeal the Electoral Act number 13 of 2022 and to enact the Electoral Bill 2026 to regulate the conduct of federal and state elections and also area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory and for related matters 2026 third reading taken and passed.
That was how the proceedings went on. Well, the bits that we were able to see, because on 2 different occasions, the Senate went into executive session over the deliberation. However, afterwards, some senators came to the public in a press conference saying what is in the public domain is different from what they agreed on with their colleagues on the floor of the Senate, and what is now being touted as being passed is totally different. Senator Ayanaya Abaribe led some minority senators, insisting that the Senate approved the electronic transmission of election results in real time, dismissing media reports suggesting otherwise and saying his integrity is at stake over the issue. He was accompanied by 13 other 7 senators. Senator Abaribe asserted that the Senate did not pass the transfer of results as contained in the 2022 Electoral Act, but rather approved the electronic transmission of results, stressing that the distinction is deliberate and important. Take a listen to him.
Put the records straight. Yesterday, the Senate did not, I repeat, did not pass transfer of results, which was in the 2022 Act. What we passed, and which the Senate President himself, when he was doing a clarification sitting on his chair, is transmission of results. Transmit, not transfer. What is in 2022 is transfer. And we don't want a law that is vague. We don't want a law that will be misinterpreted by anybody. We want a law that is clear, concise, and can be interpreted by all, and that is unambiguous. So it is electronic transmission of results. Yes.
The process and proceedings is that a committee that has been sent out to do a job for the Senate will be seated where questions arising from that report will be put across to them. The chairman of the Electoral Committee was there. We members of the Electoral Committee were there. Some of the questions were not actually put to us to verify, to clarify, and to bring why those particular clauses are there. So don't worry about what happened. We can regulate ourselves, but we know the right thing must be done. That is all that we observe.
That was how the voices of dissent from what seems to be now opposition versus ruling party senators established their stance as far as this is concerned. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, has been clarifying that the Senate did not reject the electronic transmission of election results, but merely retained the provision as contained in the 2022 Electoral Act. Senator Akpabio made the clarification yesterday while speaking at a book launch on the burden of legislators in Nigeria. And allow you to listen to the Senate President and his explanation on the position. He said, look, we've not finished the process just yet. Take a listen to the number 3 citizen there.
The Senate has not removed any means. If you want to use bicycle to carry your votes from one polling unit to the ward center, do so. If you want to use your phone to transmit, do so. If you want to use your iPad to do anything, do so. If you have network in your area, go ahead with transmission. But all we said during discussion was that we should move the word real time. Because if you say real time, and there's network, what I call grid failure, and then the network is not working. When you go to court, somebody will say it ought to have been real time. That was all we said. When do we left the burden to those who conduct election, INEC? INEC will determine the mode of transfer or transmission of votes. If you make it mandatory that we must do it real time, electronically, go and look at what happened in America between George Bush and Al Gore. By the time the votes came in Palm Beach vote scandal, Al Gore had actually won the election. But what happened? George Bush was declared while the votes were still hanging during electronic transmission. Even the best of countries are yet to get it right.
That's the Senate President making the explanations yesterday, but it does look like that has triggered, or the event of the past days triggered a lot of actions and reactions from many Nigerians. So we are understanding now that there is now a civil society organization planned protest, which they now tag hashtag Occupy NAS protests. They say they will march to the National Assembly occupied until the Senate see reasons for rescinding or ensuring that their position is well captured. Well, the Nigerian Labour Congress on their own are warning of possible mass action, election boycott, and what they say will be them breathing down the necks of the senators until a change has been effected along the lines of electoral reforms. We're now understanding now that the National Assembly, the Senate particularly, has now called for an emergency plenary, which is to take place on Tuesday, where we understand now that through the office of the clerk, the information means that they might now be sitting in an emergency session over that bill. We understand that the ADC is also planning its own protest. So it's going to be a day of rage and agitation on the streets of Abuja tomorrow on Monday. So people should be prepared the senators might not be there, but with all of this is happening, people are bearing their minds on what they think about all of these, the process. First, let me bring in virtually into the conversation a former Minister of Youth and Sport, a lawyer, and a member of the opposition, Honorable Solomon Dalong, who is live for us in Just. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I have with me live here in the studio, Mr. Samson Itodo, who is the Executive Director of Yaga Africa and one of the leaders of the CSO's organization who are leading the Occupy NAS protest tomorrow in Abuja. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Let me come to you quickly, Mr. Dalong. Why does this look like a suspicion? Because the Senate President has said, look, why are people jumping the gun? It's not concluded just yet. The process and the proceedings in passing a law has not been exhausted. And they have not even passed or agreed on the vote and proceedings on the deliberation that they had through the third reading.
Well, there is a legal maxim that said, nemo that none can happen. You don't give what you do not. The Senate has no reputation, and so it cannot give to Nigerians a credible election or election integrity. So the behavior of the people and the reaction to what the Senate President considered ongoing is based on the integrity of the Senate. The Senate has, this 10th Senate has established beyond reasonable doubt that it does not stand for the Nigerian people. And the understanding of democracy, representative democracy, is that the Senate are representing the people. And so, if the Senate is representing the people, they were expected to even consult the people on this very issue of the Electoral Act, widespread consultation, a very sensitive and critical component of our democracy. But you can see, as usual, and typical of the behavior, they just went on their own, even when elements that people unwanted things to be done wrong. The Senate President with other members of the National Assembly who are bent on truncating credible elections have gone to now include certain concepts, legal concepts that will make the entire electoral process, when it comes to litigation, transfer and transmission right time through different words with different legal implications. So, and so I think people are just being vigilant that they wouldn't allow again to face a concept which emerged during the coalition of the jobs, technical glitch, and it survived the judicial process. End of the day, people did not get that. So I think this is basically what provoked this.
But in this sense, it does look like the opposition seems to be very unnerved and a bit unsettled about the process, the Senate President. That's the inference that I'm seeing from what the Senate President said yesterday, that if we have not concluded this process, it does look like the opposition is thinking that the election rigging process has begun, or the process of consolidating on the election rigging process for 2027 is now being capitalized on. Is that a feeling with you and some of your colleagues in the opposition?
In fact, with me, that is the state of that's my state of mind, and it's the feelings of most of the opposition elements and majority of Nigerians, because we do not trust this Senate. So we will not allow this Senate to conclude what they intend to do now, so that at the end of the day, we will be led with what Professor Mahmoud did after the 2023 election. I said, after the declaration of the vote, if you disagree, vote. Also, we have experience that we are armed with, which is responsible for our behavior. And with due respect, the explanation of the Senate President even had founded the attention of Nigerians, because he's now making reference to certain things that confirm how uncertain and incredible their state of mind operates. So the explanation of the Senate President has further confirmed the fact that the 10th Senate is bent on rigging this election. because his explanation neither helps but rather expose the agenda move, and this reinforced the agitation for the occupied the National Assembly protest, which is being planned.
Is it some kind of jitter for those who feel maybe Bola Tinubu is evidently going to win this election? And because that's some of the feelers that it's electronic transmission or not, that those who are in the ruling APC who thinks and believes that either with that or not, they are coasting home. They've got a lot of governors on their side. Everything seems to be working well for them. And the steam seems to be more on the side against the opposition, and that the opposition is just jittery of an election, is probably at loss even before determining his own candidate. Is that a feeling that you imagine that the ruling party maybe have? Maybe they are right, is it?
Well, their behavior confirms their panicky nature about the election, because it is the person who is unsure that will begin to take steps in advantage. The opposition is certain about going around to Nigeria, sell their manifestos, convince Nigerians on the alternative they should elect in 2023. So the opposition is stable. That's why you see that they are not raising on the people. But this very issue is as a result of the panicky nature of the government. It started by going around to governors to defend them. Historically, in Nigeria, we have not had scale of defection. But here we are experiencing it. Why effective? Especially when you were elected by the people. Some of them had no government support behind them, but they won elections. And now they are decamping their own processes. They are insecure. So they are now running into safer political shelter. That's the evidence of the panicking nature. The government that is panicking and is doing everything to manipulate the process to its advantage. And if you look at the reaction of Nigerians again, it will now confirm to you that it is not only Nigerians now that are suspecting the government for trying to manipulate the election. The Labour Congress, which for some time not been active, is now already beating up to give a challenge. The civil society had never been united within a short span of time like now. This tells you how popular the resistance, the defiance by the Nigerian people against the point of people they sent to represent them, and they suddenly turn to represent them.
Mr. Dalong, there are those who, and I like to get your view, knowing that you have now moved into the ADC. So the question that the APC is asking is that who is man enough, politically speaking, or who is got a political buzz, like they say, to face Bola Tinubu in 2027 in the ADC? Is it Peter Obi? Is it Atiku Abubakar? Is it Aminu Tambuwal? Is it Rufai? Is it Rotimi Amechi? Who does the ADC has that is capable of unseating Bola Tinubu or challenging him in 2027? Because as far as the APC is concerned, they think that they have coasted home, they think they are coasting home, and this election is all won and lost. That is the feeling of the APC because of the political steam they've got with all of the governors. Who do you think the ADC has to give Bola Tinubu a run for the money and the APC in 2027?
Anybody dancing on a banana peel unconsciously will only realize when he's on the ground. And that is the position of the APC. The APC has no reason to be confident of winning this election. As to the question of who does the ADC has to challenge Tinubu, let me take you to this line of thought. If people who belong to some of the political parties could move out and form the coalition, then it means they are determined. There are people who have voted to challenge Tinubu. And of course, Tinubu is not a stranger to any of us in opposition. We know him too well, know his strategy too well. We know everything about him. Somebody has been with him in the revolutionary politics of Electoral as far back as 1993. So there is nothing new about what they will do that we do not know. But who will challenge him will be determined by the Nigerian people through the membership of the African Democratic Congress. We are going to conduct a transparent primary, and we have also resolved that whosoever wins a transparent primaries will be the person all of us to challenge Tinubu. So challenging Tinubu is not an individual issue, it's not the issue of the candidate, it's the issue of the party. That resolution has been issued through. So I think we have so many people to challenge Tinubu. Even myself can determine to contest election and I will challenge Tinubu. So the list of those who are contesting election to challenge Tinubu is not yet over. They are still counting.
Challenging him is one thing, defeating him is another. That those who will say it's probably one of the biggest political strategies that you have around living. And after the ilks of Buhari, Sadauna, Awolowo, Tinubu stands very tall as a political heavyweight and giant in the Nigerian political scene. That it will take a lot to be able to defeat him because of the hands that he has across the Niger and the weight that he pulls as a sitting president and the leader of the ruling party. The question is, who can defeat him?
Tinubu is the dwarf in Nigerian political history, and he should not be compared with great leaders like Sadauna and Awolowo, because great political leaders leave legacies. They serve the people. They work for the people. If Tinubu is a great strategist, as it is being speculated, let us see this translated into action. Tinubu cannot manage insecurity. Tinubu cannot manage the economy. Tinubu cannot manage even common palliative that were rolled out for the purpose of augmenting some of his economic policies. His strategies will be seen in his performance, but not somebody who everything is failing. Even as we are talking to you, even with the coming in of the Americans, today a whole village was, yesterday was told, a whole village was wiped in Kwara. The economy is in shambles. Corruption is flourishing everywhere. So where does this strategy of the great strategies make any impact for the benefit of Nigeria? Hunger, poverty, hardship is still flourishing. We cannot be deceived. We cannot be intimidated by bogus words generated by people who promote propaganda. We want a strategy on the ground. It's in Lagos. We saw his strategy in Lagos on the ground. Where are the strategies here in Nigeria? So I think we should not be deceived. We cannot be cajoled. We cannot be intimidated. We are ready to give that dwarf, who is now referred to as a giant, a fight with everything he stands for.
All right. Give me a moment. Stay with me, Mr. Solomon Dalong. Let me come to Mr. Samson Itodo. You and your friends in the civil society community are planning to occupy. The last time we heard that is occupy in what year was that? We know how things turned. Has it gotten to that point to occupy National Assembly?
Well, I think it's gotten to that point, but let's make a clarification. It does appear that there are several protests that are planned tomorrow by different interest groups. The one that we are part of is a protest that is organized and led by Action Aid and the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room with other actors. So that's the march or protest that we are part of, that led by Action Aid at the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. There are other sort of protests. It is important to make this clear distinction because we're at a time when you have different groups, some whom you may not know what's their intention. But the intention for this march organized by Action Aid and Civil Society Situation Room is to further, put pressure on the Senate to do what is right and what is in line with the wishes and aspirations of Nigerians. So when the Senate passed its own version of the bill, between Wednesday till date, there have been 3 conflicting narratives in the public space. The first one was that the Senate passed electronic transmission of result, or real-time electronic transmission of result. That's the first narrative. The second narrative is that the Senate didn't pass electronic transmission of results. Instead, it maintained the provision in Section 65 to the effect that the procedure for transmission shall be determined by INEC. The third conflicting narrative is that the Senate did pass electronic transmission. However, it removed the word real time and then also a qualifier which is called transfer, because what was contained in the bill is transmit and not transfer. These are conflicting narratives. They are conflicting narratives because in the first place, the Senate missed an opportunity to effectively communicate to Nigerians exactly what's its position. It's good and heartwarming to hear that the Senate is convening in an emergency plenary meeting. When they left for recess last week, they didn't have any intentions of convening an emergency meeting because the conference committee was given till 24th. But they have now called for an emergency plenary. We don't know, because we're only speculating what's the agenda. But we're only guessing that the only plausible agenda will be to approve and adopt the vote and proceedings. And the message is just clear. In approving the vote and proceedings, which is part of legislative practice and procedure, it is important that those provisions regarding, 1, real-time electronic transmission of results are contained and reflected, because senators have said that was exactly what they voted, and that was the content of the bill that was tabled before the Senate for consideration. The second is around downloadable PVCs. In 2023, over 6.2 million Nigerians could not collect their PVCs. If you check the results of elections in 2023 and subsequent elections, the margin of victory or lead between 2 candidates is lower than 6.2 million. So the number of people who didn't collect their PVCs is substantial enough, even if you don't justify it by virtue of the numbers. But why shouldn't a citizen who is registered and had their names on the voters register, why shouldn't they cast their vote? We need to protect the right to vote, and that's why the bill says downloadable PVCs, either those that are missing or those that are issued. That way you increase, voter participation. The third one was about the time frames and timelines that were altered. When the House of Reps passed its own version of the bill in December last year, some of these provisions that the Senate seem have mutilated or changed was passed by the House of Reps. So it is disturbing that the Senate chose this path. Well, let's wait. There is an opportunity on Tuesday. Let's see what the votes and proceedings say. But from what we understand, these conflicting narratives really suggest that there is something amiss, and that's why citizens are concerned, and they are calling on their legislators to take decisions that protect the integrity of the 2027 elections.
Something. It all started from last year, right?
Yeah.
When there is suspicion that what exactly is wrong, why the Red Chamber is not beaming its light on and possibly trying to pass, just like the Green Chamber did, the House of Representatives. They went on recess, the year went, and now the new year, and there's pressure mounting on them, especially because of the timeline.
Yeah.
For INEC seems to be waiting for the passage, and those who believe that INEC does not have to wait. INEC, there is a subsisting law that says you should, 360 days before the next election, you should be able to announce the election, which we're still waiting for INEC to take that. But it all came to say, we've senators sat on 2 different executive sessions to deliberate. And those who are asking the question, why go into an executive session over this matter? And and this is not the first time, Samson, you will remember that there are a lot of controversial bills and laws that have been passed. PIB was very popular. That people will say, what version do you have? What version has been passed? Yeah. You know, the mutilation, the whatever you remember, even the 20 amendment to the electoral law also had the same problem. Law. So how the lawmakers now think that what they said on the floor and what is being passed out there are 2 different things. And I'll come to the nitty-gritty of the technicalities as mentioned by the Senate President, and we'll look into that. What do you think could have caused that level of suspicion? And the fact that senators are now disagreeing, and their voice since they agreed on it, and even Senate President said, we did not remove transmission of results.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that accounts for this is the power that technology has to limit human interference and deepen the transparency of the electoral process. I think it is important to educate the public that technology is not a silver bullet, that technology does have its own vulnerabilities. But what you do about those vulnerabilities is you institute mechanisms that limit the extent of vulnerability, so you prevent any form of attack, because there is no system in the world that is insulated from penetration. So let's get that clear. But in this particular instance, what the political class seem to be scared of is the power that electronic transmission of results has. What does it do? It enhances the transparency of the process. It also ensures it has a deterrent effect, because at the lowest and perhaps the weakest link of our entire results management process is at the collation level. That is where results are manipulated. And what INEC did by introducing electronic transmission, whether it's IREV, is the fact that after voting at the polling unit, collate the results, enter the results on the results sheet, and then upload it, on a portal defined by INEC. That way, it enhances accessibility, so that when it goes to the collation center, everyone already sees the result. So if the collation officer is trying to alter the figures, the authentic results are already out there. And this is what, some politicians are scared of because of its capacity. It worked in 2023, where some legislators who are in the National Assembly are beneficiaries of electronic transmission of results. It worked in Nasarawa. It worked in Zamfara. It worked in Abia. There are lots of elections where this outcome is a reflection of the will of the people. That's what Nigerians are asking for.
So, and it just reminds me, we'll be going on a break now, but something that was never done in the history of our elections and on television and in broadcasting in Nigeria was a partnership China's television had with Yaga Africa and your partners, where we had real-time election result per local government in a few states that we had. We had in Ekiti and we had in Osun State. Real-time, we had result on the screen, and we were analyzing and looking at the pattern right there on the screen. And that never happened. It brought a lot of viewing excitement for the average person, and the integrity seems to end up until the disaster happened. Now, so the question here is, we're going to break. When we come back, we're going to be finding out, I have 4 technical areas which are the fears of the proponents of not extreme or use of transmission of results, but by the virtue of some of the knowledge one has garnered in election. I think you and your colleagues also, something, should fight that our result should be taken to local government for collation. There are different layers. The polling units result collation, the RA collation, the local government collation, the state and the national. So a lot of us have discovered that most of the rigging happens at the RA level.
Yes.
Polling units, you only can rig at the polling unit because the agents are there. RA level, darkness is already coming. And people manipulate the result. Whatever you have manipulated, you take to the LG, you can't salvage the situation because it's already rigged at the RA level. Yeah. That those of us who think and know that those things that are done in the dark is the RA. And I'm thinking that politicians and civil society should be fighting that RA level result should be taken to the LG. That's my own gift to a
we can debate.
Absolutely. Practical experience. But we're going to break, everyone. It's a day of rage and agitation on the streets of Abuja tomorrow. Civil society organization, politicians will be mounting an Occupy NAS protests to impose on or to make sure that the National Assembly members see reasons behind the debate on electronic transmission of results. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Join us again.
CON. The Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu CON, cordially invites the executive governors of the 36 states of the Federation and relevant stakeholders to the National Economic Council Conference with the theme, Delivering Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development, the Renewed Hope National Development Plan. Date, Monday 9th and Tuesday 10th, February 2026. Venue, Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, State House, Abuja. Time, 8 a.m. daily. The conference will be chaired by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, who is also the Chairman of the National Economic Council, NEC. The special guest of honor is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The conference will focus on major national economic issues aimed at encouraging economic growth and development across the country. Announcer, Dr. Deborah O.N. Odo, Permanent Secretary, FMBEP, Secretary of NEC.
And cable, great quality, now with the new look.
The Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, Nigeria's Companies Registry, will celebrate its 35th anniversary. The commission began operations in February 1991 at Area 11, Garki, Abuja, where Nigerians from across the country physically gathered to register their businesses through manual processes. 35 years later, the story has changed. Today, CAC services are accessed online from anywhere in the world. The commission has grown to 109 digital services powered by AI, advancing ease of doing business in Nigeria. Join the Corporate Affairs Commission as it marks 35 years of excellence. Monday, 9th February 2026. Venue, Continental Hotel, formerly Sheraton Hotel, Zone 4, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. Special guest of honor, Dr. Jumoke Uduole, MFR, Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Chief host, Hussein Ishaq Magaji, SAN, Registrar General and Chief Executive Officer of the Corporate Affairs Commission. CAC, committed to prompt and efficient service.
In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodimma's leadership has turned manifestos into reality, transformations that feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace, and in Imo, it's not left to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are watching, protecting dreams and opportunity. At Orashi's quiet shore, hydropower is rising, set to energize a growing economy. The change is visible. New roads emerge, industry hums, communities come alive. At the center, a digital revolution. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build the future. As Orashi rises, so does Imo and the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
TerraCube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. A former Minister of Youth and Sports, a lawyer, and a member of the ADC, Mr. Solomon Dalong, has been speaking with us alongside Mr. Samson Itodo, who is a lawyer, Executive Director of Yeager Africa, and Elections and Democracy Development Advocates. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight on the program. And that what I said, a lot of people who may not understand, practically speaking, because what people see, they see polling unit result, and at the end of the day, the final collation. But there are processes and for some of us who have monitored this process, when you hear there is a massive manipulation of the result, different from what you saw at the polling unit, it is the RA that most of this happened. Yeah. You know what happened at the RA? Media, election observers, civil society organization, party agents are present at the polling unit. All eyes are there. The people, they discovered that of the argument, and there are those arguments about the e-transmission of the result. And if you hear those who are in the ruling party, the lawmakers who are there, who says, look, take caution about this e-transmission. First, they mentioned issue of poor network coverage. Do we have what it takes to, we have about 120-something thousand polling units across the country. 174,000. Now, poor network coverage, where in a lot of villages and a lot of places there are no coverage. That's the first argument. Second, cybersecurity risk. If Russia can manipulate election, the allegations coming from the United States, anyone sitting in one island can take over. An election umpire website has been seized. It has happened in elections in Nigeria before. The third argument is issue of infrastructure. Do we have the capability, technically speaking, in being able to achieve that on that day when all the activities is happening on that day? The risk of legal dispute. So if you said transmission of result and you are not able to do it, are you going to be disenfranchising some people? These are some of the arguments. Does it make sense?
Well, first, let me pay tribute to the Minister Solomon Dalong. He was my lecturer in the university. He actually taught Cynthia Mbamalo and I. Oh, wow. In the university. So I'm paying special tribute to him. But to come to your question about those reasons, listen, those are valid concerns. And what we are saying is we're not discountenancing those. We're very mindful of that. But let's take them one after the other. When you talk about connectivity, and I heard, some of the leaders of the National Assembly talk about weather connectivity. Sheung, this is not the first time that we're having this conversation about electronic transmission of results. Yeah. INEC did extensive work, on electronic transmission of results. In fact, produced a discussion paper. In 2018, INEC constituted a joint committee on electronic transmission of results, comprising folks from NCC and INEC. Your guest this week, on one of the shows, a former INEC commissioner, was the co-chair of that particular committee. Do you know what the committee found out? It's contained in INEC's discussion paper that 93% of polling units have coverage. 93% of polling units. In 2023, do you know the number of polling units that were dark spots? There were less than 16,000. There were somewhere around 15,000 or so polling units. So when we talk about penetration, let's be fair to our country, that we've actually made significant progress. 93% official INEC document that 93% of polling units have coverage. In fact, this is not the first time we're transmitting data. We did that in 2023. And what happened? The fact that there was a technical glitch did not mean that the results did not come, from polling units. So I don't think that argument holds water. The second point about cybersecurity risks. Yes, when you think about technology, and I've mentioned that technologies do have their vulnerabilities. You have artificial intelligence, you have all forms of, attempted intrusion. The bigger question is, what defense mechanisms do you have in place? And this is a country that produces tech experts that are courted, and poached by the best companies in the world. And you think that we don't have the defense mechanism in Nigeria to prevent any intrusion? What makes us think that Russia or any other country would have the capacity, to intrude and try to alter, some of our figures? How come, even with the accreditation, that whilst in 2023 there were attempts to hack, were they successful? I'm not saying that there aren't systems that are not insulated from intrusion. Yes, they are. But the big question is, what systems do we have? And that's why you subject your tech systems to different tests. Penetration tests, you subject them to robustness tests. There are lots of tests that you subject to see whether those systems are capable of withstanding any attacks. You talk about infrastructure. Again, for heaven's sake, the Tinubu administration have invested so much. If you speak, even to the Minister of Digital Communications, you can see the kinds of reforms that are actually in place. So I think we're also being unfair to ourselves when we say we don't have, the infrastructure to transmit results. It is clear that the folks who are advancing this argument would need, to listen more to the developments that we have recorded as a country. INEC, who is the election management body, have said that 93% of polling units, have coverage, and they transmitted accreditation data. They transmitted, results using the BVAS in 2023. My big question, so why is 2027 different?
My big question here, Samson, and we know how this turned really very awry on the floor of the House of Representatives. If you remember, in 2022, before it was
exactly
this present Electoral Act was passed. And I'm asking my question, the practical question is that because you look at it strategically speaking, what we want to guard against is one person or any politician or any agent of evil or any devil who sits somewhere and manipulate election results. That is what we're trying to work against. And I'm not sure everybody has that agenda. But for those of us who are progressive in mind, that is what we think, that our elections should be free, fair, and there must be accountability in it. But the question is, will e-transmission of result assure or guarantee that rigging will go?
It will guarantee that it will limit human interference if there are conditions. If, one, the way it is construed and drafted in the Act, it ensures that it covers the field and provides some level of flexibility. That's one. The legal framework needs to be in place. Secondly, if INEC provides clarity in the processes for the results transmission process, and ensures that Nigerians totally understand that, especially the stakeholders in the process. The third is, at the end of the day, election boils down to the personal integrity of the individual who is manning those systems. Whether it is manual or it is electronic, it boils down to the personal integrity of that individual.
We'll due for another break quickly, something, and I'd love to bring Mr. Dowlong into the conversation before we close. The experience of the 2023 litigation, election litigation, came to the point of the uselessness of IRF As far as the defense, he doesn't have any form of defense.
Even though I don't agree with the court on that position.
But that's a reality.
No, because the court...
I'm saying that was a position of the court.
The problem, Sean, is this issue about the legality of INEC guidelines. Today, if you check our jurisprudence, we are unsure what is the fate of INEC's guidelines. Is INEC guidelines part of the legal framework for elections?
Is it a law or not? Is it a body of law? It's part of the body of law.
Of basic administrative law is that a subsidiary legislation has got a legal effect. But the court on one hand says you cannot use the guidelines to introduce electronic transmission of rules. And on the basis of that the court held that...
But if it's passed, will it empower IREF?
This is why in today's Nigeria, Nigerians are clamoring for clear provisions in the Principal Act that provides for real-time electronic transmission of results, so that it won't be subject to different kinds of interpretation that provides a leeway for people to manipulate, exercise their discretion in a way that they undermine the votes of Nigeria.
Let's take another break, everyone, and we'll come back to round up.
The Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu CON, cordially invites the executive governors of the 36 states of the Federation and relevant stakeholders to the National Economic Council Conference with the theme, Delivering Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development, the Renewed Hope National Development Plan. Date, Monday 9th and Tuesday 10th, February 2026. Venue, Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, State House, Abuja. Time, 8 a.m. daily. The conference will be chaired by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, who is also the Chairman of the National Economic Council, NEC. The special guest of honor is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The conference will focus on major national economic issues aimed at encouraging economic growth and development across the country. Announcer, Dr. Deborah O.N. Odo, Permanent Secretary, FMBEP, Secretary of NEC.
And cable, great quality, now with the new look.
The Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu CON, cordially invites the executive governors of the 36 states of the Federation and relevant stakeholders to the National Economic Council Conference with the theme, Delivering Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development, the Renewed Hope National Development Plan. Date, Monday 9th and Tuesday 10th, February 2026. Venue, Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, State House, Abuja. Time, 8 a.m. daily. The conference will be chaired by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, who is also the Chairman of the National Economic Council, NEC. The special guest of honor is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The conference will focus on major national economic issues aimed at encouraging economic growth and development across the country. Announcer, Dr. Deborah O.N. Odo, Permanent Secretary, FMBEP, Secretary of NEC.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're totally out of time, but Mr. Dalong, just a 30 seconds final comment on this conversation. Where do we go from here?
Let me acknowledge the kind tributes from my one of my respected students, and I thank God that destiny crossed our path. Each time he's mentioned, I feel fulfilled in life. He demonstrated these tendencies for the love of democracy, even as a student. Sam, God will bless you. You see, where do we go from here is the question that we have been asking so many times. In your conversation with Sam, the missing link in all you have discussed, whether technicalities or the law, is that there is no political will to protect the integrity of our elections. Once there is the political will, all these issues that are raised will not exist.
All right.
So these tendencies, these tendencies.
We're totally out of time, Mr. Allen. We need to go, but thank you so much. Something, 10 seconds and we head out.
I think INEC should go ahead and issue the timetable for the 2027 elections. And when the National Assembly meets on Tuesday, please ensure that real-time electronic transmission of results is part and adopted in the votes and proceedings.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We're totally out of time. That's our show for today, man. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Sean Okimale. God bless you.
Here in Zambia, power cuts are part of daily life. Extreme weather is affecting power generation. Rising demand adds to the pressure, and when fuel for generators runs low, the lights don't stay on. It's a nightmare, right? That's why off-the-grid solutions are now more useful than ever, and they have a huge potential, as we're about to see. Welcome to Echo Africa. I'm Malama Mukonde in Lusaka, Zambia. And here's my co-host, Chris Elens.
Hello everyone and greetings from Lagos, Nigeria. Thanks for joining us today. Here's what we have coming up. How electric motorbikes are helping beat the fuel shortage in Mali. Baking bread with sunshine in Lesotho. Fish-friendly hydropower solutions from Austria. And reviving forests in northern Ghana through natural regeneration. But we start the show on the beach. You've probably heard of SUVs, sports utility vehicles. Now these versatile cars are designed to master off-road terrain. In Libya, many people take them down to the shore to race for fun. But that's posing a deadly threat to an endangered species. So a group of volunteers has made it their mission to do all they can to save vulnerable sea turtles.
It's Friday night in the city of Misrata. Time to hit the beach. Young people come to show off what the ACVs can do. The sand flies, the engines roar. The most popular beaches are those with especially soft sand, ideal for drifting. Once the crowds are gone, a group of volunteers led by environmentalist Bashir Swaib assesses the damage. Libya's beaches serve as a nursery for various species of sea turtle. They dig their nests in this soft sand.
It's a remarkable life cycle. A turtle comes back to the very same beach where it was born. About 18 or 20 years after birth, it returns to nest, guided by an extraordinary sensory ability. It's our duty to provide a proper environment for them, because we all need each other.
The loggerhead sea turtle lives in all the major oceans, but the large seagrass beds off the coast of Libya and Egypt are essential for the survival of this endangered species. Research shows that turtles have been coming to the Libyan coast for at least 3,000 years to feed and lay their eggs. Now this habitat is under threat. Scientists say, given its importance, the area needs special protection. But the last official conservation program ended in 2011 due to the growing political unrest and then civil war.
Despite the presence of predators and the lack of public awareness, we have not lost hope. We continue working in this field entirely as volunteers and without any support, driven by a sense of responsibility.
At first, they tried to talk to the drivers, but the crowds weren't willing to listen, threatening instead to beat them up. Today, they're searching the beach for nests using long sticks. When they discover one, they carefully remove the eggs, transferring them to safer areas. They need to work first, as the soft eggs dry out quickly in the sun and have to be returned to the damp sand as soon as possible.